is on the subject of evacuations. I could do that all again, for the recording. The San Lorenzo Valley Emergency Network General Meeting on the topic of evacuations. Thank you for joining us in person in Boulder Creek and online in Zoom. We'll see you all in a minute. We're really grateful to be able to come out to the community, particularly to come up here to Boulder Creek and be public in person and see your faces and bring to you some content that I know we all think is very important when a situation arises and we need to get out of the valley. How are we going to do that? And so we wanted to just pick a subject that was going to be compelling for everyone. And I've got a great panel of speakers for you tonight. And I'll introduce them in just a moment. So beg a favor of those on the Zoom. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping for this location. So our exit routes from this room, in case anything unusual, unexpected, or disastrous were to happen during this meeting, we have an exit to the front right of the building, and then 2 doors to the back of the building. And we will meet, if we have to evacuate this building, we will meet out in the main parking lot behind the fire station to account for everyone. And in this facility, the Boulder Creek Rec Hall, there are restrooms. And how you get to the restrooms is you will follow the blue arrows. You'll go out this door and to the right. And there's some bathrooms that are adjacent to the stage. One before you get to the stage, and one that's all the way across diagonally to the back of the stage. It's available for use as well. And do watch your step as you exit into the hallway. It is a little step down. I would like to acknowledge and thank the Boulder Creek Business Association, Karen Edwards, in particular, for supporting Sliven in our effort to come up to Boulder Creek and make this a successful evening. And I would like to now introduce our speakers for this evening. We have from County Office of Response, Resilience and Recovery, or Recovery Response Resilience, OR3. Dave Reed, the director. We have from the Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Nick Baldridge. I'm so sorry. Cal Fire, thank you. We have Forester Brett Agler from Boulder Creek Fire. We have Chief Bingham. And from Equine Evac, we have Mary Sullivan White. And we also hope this evening that we'll have a member of ARES join us to talk about radio communication. All right, and other folks I'd like to recognize in the audience this evening includes Bruce McPherson, our 5th District Supervisor. Thanks for being here. Okay. So with that, please make sure that your cell phones are off, or those of folks who are on the Zoom that you are muted when you are not speaking. We're going to allow our guests to speak, and I may ask a couple of questions to prompt if needed, and we'll take their comments about the subject of evacuation. And then we will have a Q&A period to be able to take questions from the audience. And those who are on Zoom, go ahead and use the chat to enter your questions, and we'll hope to get to those as well. All right, so with that, welcome everyone. All right, so Dave Reed, County OR3. I was interested to have you go first because county OR3, I'm kind of off camera here. Sorry about that. The county is, you know, the tip of the spear of watching over all the activity in the county when we've got emergencies and disasters. I'm really curious about how you think about evacuations and how you orchestrate it. What could you tell us?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, everybody. I hope online folks can hear me as well. So the way OR3, and just quick context for OR3, Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience. So that is the consolidation of kind of the Office of Emergency Services functions for the county, supporting recovery efforts, both individual assistance recovery efforts and public assistance recovery efforts from disaster, as well as finding ways to build resilience for our community. So in the context of resilience, in the context of evacuation, it really all starts with communication to you, the public, through the county, through the sheriff's office, through OR3. And that communication tool, that primary communication tool for us is Cruise Aware. So I want to make sure everybody here in person, online, that you're signed up for Cruise Aware. You know what it is, that you have your home address in the system. And if you have loved ones or other locations where you work or your family is, you have those systems in Cruise Aware, those addresses in Cruise Aware as well. And I'm happy to answer questions about Cruise Aware. That's basically the reverse 911 system by which we're going to try and communicate with you. And from an evacuation standpoint for the Valley, the greatest risk and challenge for us on the county side, at least in my opinion, and maybe Nick or the chief may feel differently, but is really being able to communicate with you. And the greatest risk is that that communication pathway is disconnected. The most common way that that will be disconnected is if PG&E has our power out for an extended period of time during a PSPS event, or some other power outage reason limits our ability to use traditional means to communicate with you. So that's an important part that we have to build redundancy to, right? No one system is going to be perfect to communicate with you. Cruise Aware is one of them. I want to let you know about a couple others to make sure you're aware of those. The second way is through our ARES and CERT partners and Firewise communities that have built an internal communication system through MERS radios or through our ARES ham radio community. So many communities in the Valley and throughout the county have some of those informal and formal organizational structures built to communicate. So hopefully your community may have that, or you know of a CERT member in your community that you can connect to. But the ARES amateur emergency radio network folks are able to communicate into our emergency operations center, and we are able to communicate out. So that will be another tool that we use in the event that communication is challenged. Another tool is the NOAA weather radios. So those are, you can get those sometimes as a free gift from NPR. They crank, you know, some of them are crank radios, but the NOAA weather radios is another way in which we can communicate with you, especially during power outage conditions where maybe your cell phone or your landline don't work. Those radios are typically battery powered or battery backup. And I want you to write something down. We are going to test that system. So hopefully for those of you who have a NOAA weather radio, or you have a few weeks to get one, we're planning on testing the NOAA weather radio non-weather emergency message system, probably most likely on Friday, June 7th. So Friday, June 7th, we're going to be partnering with CAL FIRE during one of their drills. They're doing an exercise, and we're going to be working with the National Weather Service to send out a message through that radio system. So the nice thing about those radios is it will wake you up, or it will alert you when something is happening. So that's a third tool. And then obviously the community communication interpersonally, interrelationally in the neighborhood is another helpful tool. So we have to be able to communicate to you when conditions are imminent or hazardous or concerning so that you have the time to either get out early, or if we need to get you out quickly, we can communicate with you as best we can. So I want to first highlight communication as the key starting point for how we're going to manage evacuations, or how we're going to tell you, hey, the weather conditions later in the week, not this week, but as an example, the weather conditions later in the week are going to be getting bad. We may be having a PSPS event. We want you to make your preparations, have your go bags ready in case we need to make a quick notice. If you feel like you need more time, maybe you should stay somewhere else. We want to be able to communicate those things to you well ahead of needing to get you out quickly in like a Paradise type situation or a Lahaina type situation. So as I said, the specific conditions that might precipitate evacuations obviously is an active fire burning somewhere where we're concerned, like CZU, but there could be other conditions, extreme red flag conditions, where we would advise vulnerable populations, residents who have access and functional needs, if you don't have ready access to a vehicle or you're concerned about your health and safety with power outage, with power being out, we may recommend that you leave early. So those are kinds of the conditions: extreme weather, red flag conditions, or obviously an active fire where we're concerned about it advancing on habitable areas of our county. A couple key elements of anybody's evacuation plan is to know as many ways in and out of your home and your community as possible. Most of the folks here in the Valley are too versed, shall I say, in that reality. So I don't think I need to delve too much into that, but just making sure that you know that if this road is closed, I could go over here. If that road is closed, I can go over there, and in and out of the valley. And then obviously, we want to try and do a good job communicating to you through some of our technology solutions when you have power, where those road closures might be as well. So a couple ways in which we're going to effectuate an evacuation, and I don't want to take too much time, but we are going to use what's called the Zone Haven tool. So that's divided up the entire county into discrete areas, usually by fire jurisdiction or city jurisdiction. So most of you may be in the Boulder Creek Fire District, and so you have a zone, and we're gonna identify the zones that we are concerned about, notify those folks, and I'll let Nick get into some of those details. And then we're going to try and get you out. And the goal obviously is to get you out in advance of harm, right? So that so that you have time to gather the things that are most precious to you and move out of your home into a safer area. It's hard to describe, but there is a situational awareness tool that the county has on our website, on our OR3 website, called the Safer app. Ooh, look at that. Very good. And this is a great tool right now. It's showing kind of a flood view. So it's showing actually rainfall totals. It's going to shift to a default wildfire view soon, where it'll show weather conditions and other fire starts in the larger area. So this is a great blue sky, your power's on, your internet's working, way in which you can kind of track what's going on in the region. If you see smoke or smell smoke, there's a layer in here that you can kind of zoom out and see the smoke modeling, or you can see what fires might be north or east or south of us that might be contributing to poor air quality or a prescribed burn of some sort. I think right now, the only other thing I'll add, and then I'm happy to answer questions later, is the county and OR3 is embarking upon, we're hiring a consultant to help us with an evacuation plan. So a county-wide evacuation plan. And I would welcome, there'll be some public outreach and stakeholder outreach. So the San Luis Valley Emergency Network, will probably want to reach out to you, have you engaged in that process. And that's really trying to give us a high level guidance document for how we're going to manage both communicating and the logistics of evacuating folks in the county. So that's coming this summer and fall. So stay tuned for that, and there might be engagement opportunities through that.
All right. I'm Nick Baldridge. I'm a lieutenant with the sheriff's office. I oversee our community policing unit, but I also am the liaison to the EOC in any sort of disaster event. Just to kind of cover a little bit of what the sheriff's role is in any sort of evacuation. Ultimately, the order of evacuation falls on the sheriff to make because it is a lawful order, and it falls on our decision of whether or not we're going to evacuate a certain area, and we're going to issue those orders. Now, the big thing is we don't do it alone. We typically in any sort of disaster, any sort of evacuation type of situation, we establish unified command, typically with fire. During the storms, it was with National Weather Service. We were getting intel in, and we were utilizing that to make those decisions because I don't know very many cops that have taken fire science or meteorology or any of that good stuff. So uh, we rely on those specialists to give us the right information, and then make the best decision on what's the safest. So we will make those notifications during CZU or during a large fire. Obviously, within a certain parameter, we're issuing orders right away. And part of our order of operation is to get into the closest spot we can get to where the fire started and start doing door-to-door notifications. So our operational plan for any sort of mass incident of any sort of natural disaster is to go door to door as much as we can get into. On the zone haven, each of your zone or each of your areas are broken up into zones, sometimes subzones. And we have an actual operational order for each zone. So when we start doing evacuations for those zones, we have a whole packet that goes out with the deputies to begin those evacuations and begin those notifications in conjunction with Cruise Aware, in conjunction with the Zone Haven alerts and all the different platforms that we utilize. We're putting boots on the ground to try and make all those notifications. When an event starts up, the numbers are only what we have in the county at that given time. But we order and have deputies come in to increase those numbers as quickly as we can get people on the street to get into those events. So sometimes we can get them quicker. Other times it takes a little bit longer, but our goal is to get people there. Preservation of life is the number one thing, and getting out there and making those notifications to get people out. When we're doing those evacuations, I wish I could say there was a one given route every single time of this is the way you get out. But because we don't know where the incident starts, what area is impacted, it's going to be a variable every single time because it's all situational dependent. So we're going to try and provide as much information as possible to get people out safely, but it's going to be based on that situational dependent issue. So which way we go is all dependent on where the threat is to that. The one thing that we do is as we evacuate areas and we move people out, once we've got to a stabilized position where we're not doing evacuations anymore, then we go into preservation of property. More or less, while you're out of your area, you've been given the evacuation order. We will then have roving patrols that are going through these areas, looking for anybody that might be looking to loot properties or shouldn't be inside the evacuated area. Now, there are times where people don't want to leave their residence. We knock on the door, we give the evacuation order, and they choose that they want to stay. We're not going to be wrestling people out of their houses. That's just not what we're going to do in those situations. But we will a lot of times take information, which could include up to a DNA sample. And we do that just so that if that person leaves and we can't get back to them, because there's a potential where we might not be able to go back to that address, we at least know who we talked to and how many people were there. Obviously, the best choice is to evacuate those zones, and that's what we recommend. But each person's going to make their own decisions of what they're going to do for that. The recommendation, though, is if you stay behind at your house, because when we start bringing in mutual aid and we're bringing in agencies from all over the state to help us because we need the staffing, they will stop you if you're not inside a house walking around the streets because it's an evacuated zone. So we are responsible for protecting the whole area. And it can also oftentimes cause you an issue if you're out and about walking through the neighborhood. I think that covered just about everything, unless you have more that you'd like me to cover initially. Yeah, so the terminology of advisory, warning, or order, you may get advisories from OR3 on certain factors, but probably not. We use warning and order only. So we may put the peripheral of an event on a warning, and it's be ready because we may change that zone into an order. And then the order is a lawful order to evacuate that area, and we follow that up with a door-to-door notification.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brett Agler. I work for CAL FIRE as a registered professional forester, and my role is the vegetation management program coordinator, and I cover basically fuels projects within Santa Cruz County. Another person in my office, Frank Rogers, he's the pre-fire engineer, and he kind of deals with the pre-planning and unit fire plan and stuff like that, which is more his area of expertise and less of mine. But what I can speak to is fuels reduction projects and whatnot. And so I guess what I wanted to talk about was kind of the importance of fuels reduction along your primary evac routes, your ingress and egress routes. It's kind of a crucial step, that's anything from, say, Highway 9, that's a main ingress and egress route for the larger area, but you may be in a neighborhood that you have kind of one main road in and out, and a lot of these neighborhoods, those roads are pretty overgrown, pretty high density of fuels there. So I just want to stress the importance of doing fuels reduction projects if you can along those evac routes, which I know are expensive, and there's usually a lot of neighbors involved. So it's tough to coordinate that sort of thing. But what you can do on your own is maintaining your defensible space around your own property. That goes a long way, especially if you're along one of those evac routes. That's something you can do on your own. But as for the kind of larger projects, there are there's one main grant program. It's called the Wildfire Prevention Grants. It's funded by CAL FIRE. And you do have to be, say, either a government agency or a 501c3 nonprofit, which some Firewise communities are, fire safe councils. The local RCD is a great resource. So if you're looking to develop a project, I do oftentimes like to recommend reaching out to Fire Safe Council or the RCD. They're great at coordinating amongst like a large number of landowners. And they have been successful in the past at getting these grants and putting these projects together. If you've seen, there's their latest projects along Summit Road, which has been pretty successful, but kind of the main treatment I like to advocate for is called a shaded fuel break. It's a fuel break in that you're reducing the vegetation or fuels in the understory, and it's shaded in that you're not taking everything out. You're maintaining that residual canopy of the overstory trees, which can provide shade and kind of that microclimate, which the fire does come through. It'll slow down the spread and give us a better chance to get in there and make that area defensible. So that can go a long way. And that's kind of my area. We do these projects, prescribed burns, burn piles, things like that. But as far as some of the other stuff that we were hoping maybe Frank could touch on. He's not here today. That's about all I have, and I'm happy to answer questions on the grant program or kind of fuels reduction you can do on your own, anything like that. So, unless you had any other.
I have a question. Hello?
Hi, can we wait to we'll get to our question and answer period or? You can put a question into the Zoom chat as well.
I can't hear a thing, so I don't know what they're saying.
Thanks. Hi, thanks. Yeah, so everyone on the Zoom, what we're going to do is we're going to take questions after our speakers talk. And but you can put your question into the Zoom chat.
I'm just asking if they define the acronyms, like if RCD, you got to tell us, please tell us what it is. If you tell us define the acronyms for us, it would really help.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry, we love our acronyms. RCD stands for Resource Conservation District. So in this county, it's the RCD of Santa Cruz County, Resource Conservation District of Santa Cruz County.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Mark Bingham. I'm the Fire Chief of Boulder Creek Fire Protection District, which encompasses Brookdale and Boulder Creek. Got a couple of items here to talk about this evening, and feel free to shoot more questions at me after that. What role does the fire district play during an evacuation? Well, if it's an evacuation that has to do with life safety, like say a mudslide or a wildland fire, any type of danger that could be to a neighborhood, just a few people or a bunch of people, you're going to get a 911 call that's going to come out from those folks that are endangered or someone who witnesses it. From that, if you're inside the fire district, that's going to initiate a 911 response out of our fire station, and we're going to be the first responders getting there and making the initial size up of whatever that scene is and determining how big or how small or what resources are needed. And so how we play in a term of, say, a wildland evacuation is most often we're going to be there early, and we're going to start getting our minds wrapped around what we have and what the fire is doing itself. And we're going to be working with our partner agencies to collaborate and making sure that we protect life and property, life first. So we'll try to get people out of the way or path of where that fire is going, and maybe also keeping in mind where the resources are coming in from, making sure that we're not putting a flow of traffic back in the direction that we're responding from. We'll also be working with the county of Santa Cruz, then the sheriff's department, and through a mutual agreement, we're able to initiate evacuations and work with our partner agencies. The sheriff, of course, being in charge of the overall evacuation with the responsibility to affect it, and then OR3 to communicate it. So we all work together from start to finish on evacuations. Sometimes I'm getting on scene and it's just a single house fire that might go into the vegetation and spread. And I'm talking to my partner agency saying, yep, send me a couple more engines and maybe, yes, continue that aircraft. But right now we're not really going to evacuate a whole neighborhood or a whole mountainside. We might just do local evacuations at that point. The sheriff's showing up. Usually a deputy is saying, what do you need? And we're saying, hey, can you door knock the next 3 houses over? But we think we got this thing handled, kind of a deal. So I kind of do a lot of stuff with evacuations on boots on the ground early on aspect. And then I'm also an operational chief besides an admin chief. So I work as an IC, sometimes out there in the field. I was Unified Incident Commander at the CZU fire. So, had a big part to play there, looking out for the safety of the valley. And then, I'm also an operational area coordinator. So I work with OR3 and our state partners for ordering as the scene or the size of the emergency gets bigger. And again, communicating all that down in relation to the question, which was about evacuation. It's the question here says SLV has a lot of people who've lived here a long time, and people may also people who might be relatively new. How do the understandings of what roads to go and where to go really vary? So I'm guessing this question is really formed for there's the folks that have been here since the time, when they first were born. They've been born and raised here, and they know all the back roads by the back of their hands, and a road closes in the wintertime, they immediately know the alternate route. Well, this really isn't evacuations isn't really, or excuse me, evacuation roads isn't usually a problem for those people. Evacuation roads is the problem for the people that are new to the area. And they don't know what the secondary, the third, fourth, fifth choices are for road closures. But what you can do is be using Cruise Aware. And if you have connectivity, you're going to get that information passed through the fire agencies and the law agencies through OR3. And your phone or your device, your radio, that can get the weather band will be telling you what roads are the primary roads that you're going to take. You could also listen to local radio stations. The news briefings that are going to be coming out if the incident is growing at all will be also helping with that. So there's a lot of ways to get what roads are the best way. I would suggest that if you're new to the area and or if you've been here a long time, don't pick the smallest path on the windiest road and the steepest hill. Pick something that's more of a big artery. We're probably going to be protecting or coming in and out of on those big arteries before we're going to be on all the little ancillary small feeders. If that makes sense. Any other questions?
Thank you for having me. My name is Mary Sullivan White. I'm the head of Santa Cruz County Equine Evac. I have a slideshow, which they have covered a lot of what I was going to cover because this is my generic slideshow. And let's see, this is our mission statement. There's going to be a couple that I'm going to skip over. It's not working. Do I need to aim it that way?
No.
It worked earlier, but that's how we roll because we never know what's going to happen with Equine Evac. You want to just page down and all. Okay. So our big thing is have a plan. Preparation is, do you have a plan? Because we are not your plan. We are your backup plan. Oh, now it's working. Okay, it's a little off. So this, after the CZU or during the CZU, my phone bill was 83 pages long. So we came up with this phone number. It's called a sideline. It rings to 10 people. If you need your animals evacuated and you've already called 911, 911 will give you this number out to call us. We can, somebody will answer your call. Doesn't matter what time it is. Okay, now it's, oh, there it is. Let's go fires and floods. I'm not going to read through all this, but we have the advisory, the warning, and the evacuation order. With horses, it's different in floods because we know that Covered Bridge equestrian is going to flood ahead of the time. So we try and get the animals out before it floods, before it even starts to flood. We try and get them out. And there's what, 90 horses down there? It takes a lot. Some of them don't load. So it's a little, it's not working again. Plan ahead. That's our thing with floods. Know about your road closures, SLV roads. That's my Facebook page. It was a brainstorm during that flood thing that we had a couple years ago. Know where you're going to go with your animals. If you need a place, you can go to, well, I'll get to that. Uh-oh, where'd it go? A shelter or another ranch. If you need a place to go to, we have the ranch list. This works for all farm animals, anything above a chicken. The one thing I will say is we do not do reptiles. Don't call me, call Todd at Animal Services. There we go. This is just a slide on be prepared for, would have your stuff gathered, which they've pretty much covered. This is what you want to have for your horse. Do any of you guys here have horses? No, Rebecca. We recommend having, microchip for your horses. If you have to let them go, which it did happen in the CZU. put something on them to mark your horse, whether it's on the rump, the hoof, the horns for goats, or collar, whatever, but make sure it's a leather collar so it doesn't melt to the animal. I know it sounds horrible. Okay, this is kind of funky here. During the CZU, there was a lot of animals that were left that were still locked in their corrals in their barns. Open them up and let them go, and shut the door behind them or the gate behind them so they don't run back in. Go bags for your animals, especially the horses, proof of ownership, list of meds, your buckets, your brushes, your hoof pick, whatever you need to take care of your horse. Don't bring your tack. We don't want to store it at the facility where we're having it. So okay, so here's the shelters and staging areas. During the floods and the debris flows, we only use Quail Hollow Ranch. And we have a minimal amount of trailers there. We have them dispatched from home in case somebody needs to pull out, either have their horses pulled out during the flood. Graham Hill Showgrounds, we do not use in the rain. It's too muddy. It's a hot mess up there, and we don't want to destroy the grounds. Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds, if there's a fire in the North County, we use Graham Hill Showgrounds. If it's in the South County, we automatically go to the fairgrounds. And we move the animals out of the shelter as fast as we can move them out or move them in, whatever, however you want to say it. We have, I don't know how that slide got in there, but anyway. Know your zone, that Dave went over that. Here's our ranch list. So you can go to our website, which you just Google Santa Cruz County Equine Evac. And there's a thing called a ranch list. Sign up for it. And it asks you how many animals you have. Do you have goats, chickens, horses, reptiles? Because we will not be going to your house if you have reptiles. Sorry. And it's a confidential list. So we don't turn it into animal services. In 18 years of doing this, I've only turned in 2 addresses. And it was how do you say it? Well-deserved, very well-deserved. But we have them all mapped out. So each of those little dots on there is somebody's house or ranch. I think we have 1,200 on the list right now. So if you have horses, you're one of those little dots, and the fire breaks out in Boulder Creek again, we can just put a square around it and start calling those people to warn them that, I mean, you're already getting the warning, but we know what animals you have. So we can go in there and we know what size trailer to send. You know, if you have 2 horses and 10 goats, we know who to send. If you have your house and your ranch hanging off a side of the road or a side of a cliff, we know who to send. Somebody that can drive a small trailer. Oops, it's not working. There's my confidential list. Everything I just did. Sorry, I'm going through this kind of fast now. So I wanted to give you, there's our contact information and everything, but I wanted to give you guys some facts about the CZU and what we evacuated and what we did. This does not include self-evacuations. Just from the Boulder Creek area, there was 140 horses, 122 goats, 19 sheep, 13 pigs, 5 cows. We evacuated 675 chickens, 3 cats, 2 emus, 2 Patagonian maras. If you don't know what those are, please Google them. 5 guinea pigs, 4 alpacas, 6 turtles, 6 bunnies, and I think there was 100 leaf-tailed geckos. I know, but they were in cages and I didn't go. Fun fact about Boulder Creek is, did you know we have 1 of 3 in the United States leaf-tailed geckos breeder in Boulder Creek? Yeah. When we did the shelter in place feeding with the Sheriff's Department and Animal Services, we fed 2 horses, which was good, 6 pigs, 4 cows, 1,409 chickens. So I know you all have chickens. 355 other fowl and 163 cats and 17 stops of feeding fish. So, and thank you very much. Is there any questions? Oh, yes, and we're filing a 501c3.
Oh, now, test. Okay. It's not going to scream at us. That one's off. I wonder if that's what if the conflict is if they're both on. Okay. So it was just this one.
You're too close to the speaker.
Test. Check.
That's better. Thank you.
That's our main mic. Okay, I'm gonna move up here. Okay, so Aries is the amateur radio emergency service. And I've got two things going in my ears now. Okay, sorry. So Aries is amateur radio emergency service whose the goal is to provide supplemental communication in the event of a disaster or other emergencies. For instance, during the CZU evacuation, we rode along with Equine Evac and to go out and feed those chickens and fish and in some cases also help transport horses. I was up with a team up in the Long Pico area where we had no cell phone. There was nobody around because everybody had evacuated. At some point it dawned on me that we didn't have amateur radio to communicate with. We had little, no other methods. So anyway, Aries is a group of volunteers who are hams, but are focus on training and responding to emergencies. I don't know if there's anything more I can say about that. In that case, the county animal control is the part of the county that asks for our assistance. It's not a self-deployed situation. We have to be requested by the county to do such a thing, and that request can come from two directions. It can go from the animal evac, or it can come, from the OR3 direction. And
So how do you use ham radio communication?
well, in the case of the CZU fire, we had people that were riding along with the animal rescue people. And so we had a team of two people who were focused on the animals, and then myself, who were sitting in the back seat, keeping an eye on the communications. And also it occurred to me that it was also had a unique opportunity in that my focus was not on the animals. So I could focus more on the situational awareness of, like, where are we in relationship to the fire? Things like, has the wind changed? In addition to listening to the radio. It was kind of a funny thing, was that Aries does a lot of community involvement things, like coming up next week is the Strawberry Fields bike ride, where we will deploy to the different rest stops and also drive around looking for bicycles that have broken down. And that's, community, something that benefits the community. But when I was sitting in the back seat up in Lone Pico, everything felt so routine. I had deployed my, radio, stuck a magnet on top of the truck, plugged it into the cigarette lighter. I'm sitting there with my logbook and communicating, and it felt so routine. And it finally dawned on me, oh, this is what we've been training for years and years, is to make the extraordinary feel routine. Ham radio has actually become quite easy to, well, I shouldn't say quite easy, but it's easier to license than it used to be. We don't need to learn Morse code. The test is a multiple choice test. You only need to basically get a C passing grade in the test. And there are classes. In fact, the next class is going to be in the mid-September, starting in the mid-September, in person this time. So it's something we will be publicizing when we know more about it. Okay.
All right, so we would like to all right, so what we'd like to do now is do some questions and answers. For those of you who are in the room, because of our microphone situation, if you would mind coming around this way, and we would have you be able to ask your question. We could do that also. Why don't we start with you both, if you want? Yeah, you should know. So we're gonna need to have a 2-minute limit for questions.
It's a quick question.
Sure, absolutely.
I've had a lot of problems with GPS. It takes people to someplace other than where my house is. And I know a lot of people in this area. I see it on Nextdoor all the time. Someone got a package that was supposedly addressed to their GPS and it's not at their house. I live on Boulder Brook. Boulder Brook goes up one side of Foreman Creek and down the other side. But the creek went through the bridge in 82 and you can't get to my house from that side. And 2 months ago, I had to call 911. I was having a medical emergency. As you can tell, I'm a little bit short of breath. And I told them on 911, the GPS is wrong. The GPS will take them to the other side of the creek, will take them to the wrong road. I have an entire pattern down to explain to people that their GPS will take them to the wrong side of the creek. And I saw the ambulance go up the other side of the creek. And if I had keeled over and not seen them, they would never have found me. So there doesn't seem to be any mechanism where I can say, GPS is wrong, and you have to bring it over to where I am.
Thank you. Would anyone care to comment on that situation?
Yeah, there is a mechanism.
Would you, thank you.
Hello? All right, there's not a clean solution for you, but there is a avenue. So County of Santa Cruz under Public Works has what's called Roads and Signs Division. Roads and Signs Division also deals with addressing. And you can report an address that's not correct. You can tell them that your address should be on one street named Redwood or named Boulder Brook in your case. And you can start working with that group. That group then have to work with the other agencies, law and fire, to make sure that everything is okay to change, and that our maps are also changed at the same time for the future 911 purposes. So there is an avenue for the general citizens to go to correct addressing issues. Now, sometimes those same issues can be driven by law, by fire, leasing.
It's not my agency, but at the county of Santa Cruz, you're gonna look for addressing and signage. Pretty sure they have a search bar on the website. Yeah, it's under the public.
I think we lost the sound again.
To give you further on that, the assemblywoman did reach out to me.
Okay. Is it better now? Okay. All right, thanks. So still a little bit on the loud side. Do you want to ask your question from there or do you want to come up? I can't have you stand there because of the feedback loop for the.
My concern is traffic congestion. Doesn't take much to bring Highway 9 to a standstill. And I'm wondering what help we can have from Sheriff's Department or CHP to have officers on the scene to speed traffic. I'm concerned that we just have a 2-lane road and the left lane, the inbound lane is empty. I suppose you want to leave that for emergency vehicles, but there can be, I think, a big disaster for people not getting out because traffic is not controlled. Is there some plan that you would have to help us get out of here fast?
Yeah, so there are certain roads, obviously, that where contraflow, which is putting vehicles in the opposite lane, is feasible. Highway 9 is probably not one of those roads, given the number of driveways and access roads along it. Highway 17, would be a different scenario where if we needed to use Highway 17, all 4 lanes in one direction, we would work with CHP. So our biggest goal is to get you out and communicate with you early. And obviously at all of our key traffic control points, if we needed to get folks out, we would work with the sheriff and CHP to make sure that we had those intersections staffed with an officer to help move traffic flow and manage those intersections. Lompico and Zianti Road is a perfect example. That's a Y intersection that's not controlled by a traffic signal. So we recognize those key locations where we would deploy folks. And part of the plan that I described earlier is to help identify and work through a lot of those idiosyncrasies at a more granular level. Anything else you want to add?
Thanks. I have a question actually for Chief Bingham. So I understand that during 2020 CZU, reverse 911 system was configured to do something special. Would you
ask people to go out different routes?
the question was, or was understood was, you had asked people to choose different routes out, perhaps.
So I didn't ask people what they wanted to do.
Okay.
Let's get, sorry, but let's be clear. An evacuation order is an order. It means it's direction. You get the order, you take that direction, you do what it says. The sheriff's department placed the order through direction from me, working with the sheriff's agency, also down with the CAL FIRE folks down there in Felton. And under 30 minutes, we had the primary evacuation zones identified that were going to be affected by where the closest fire was, 2 people. And the sheriff's officers had already figured out what the pinch points were, what the traffic delays were going to be, what direction of travel is needed to happen, working with their partner agencies, the fire agencies, and back and forth real fast, figuring out what the right method was going to be. And then they have a wonderful platform that you can speak to if you want, Nick, at the time, that was able to literally in real time for us put directional arrows blinking different neighborhoods going on different highway paths out of the danger area. And then what you see on the other side is the order that says you're in Riverside Grove, please exit Riverside Grove, head to Highway 9, head north on Highway 9 over to Santa Clara until you reach Highway 280 or something like that. That's the flip side of what we do on our end.
Would you like to speak to that?
I think it was, I think you covered it.
Okay, thank you. That's fantastic. All right, we have another question here from the floor and then we'll go online. Come on all the way up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy and I've come up to Boulder Creek from Lompico. So my question concerns the one main access road, the county road, Lompico Road. What efforts are being undertaken to shore up the road and fuel reduction attempts along the road? I have to assume that we would get a very early evacuation order as opposed to other areas where you might have a little more lead time. Being that it's a box canyon and we've got the one road in and out, are there plans to address fuel reduction along Lompico Road?
Fuel reduction? Okay.
Lompico Road's definitely a concern in that, yeah, it's narrow and it's the only way in and out, and there's a pretty high accumulation of fuels. We generally, with CAL FIRE, if we're going to undertake a project on our own, utilizing our own personnel, it's going to be in the SRA, the state responsibility area. And it's, we have a series of, we call them truck trails that we do annual maintenance on. So there's Lompico truck trail that we do like to get to. But as far as a road that has that many landowners, and that would take, for us to do something there, that would take a landowner agreement for every single property that touches that road, which sounds simple, but it's a pretty long process. True, yeah. So, that just takes something, you can call Felton and we can discuss some, see if a project is able to be developed. On a project of that scale, there's kind of a lot that you may not consider in that, we have to go through a pretty arduous environmental review process, and that can take a lot of time. So often what I like to recommend is, again, seeking out grant funds and paying a contractor to get that done whenever possible. And that's a CAL FIRE grant you can go for and pay for it that way, because I know it's expensive, but yeah, I'll let you touch on it.
Let me just elaborate. Okay. So a couple things for those that aren't familiar with the valley. Yeah. The first about 1.5 miles, there's no PG&E lines. So our office was awarded an evacuation safety grant through the California Fire Safe Council. Some of those funds are being earmarked to do fuel reduction work along that first 1.5 miles, focused primarily on hazard trees rather than significant brush clearance. But as our CAL FIRE partner just said, the environmental piece, because of the proximity to the creek, because of the salmonid component in that creek, is a high bar. So we need to go through that high bar to expend those grant funds to do the work, but we're trying to work on that right now. As you get farther into the valley, as you know, as a resident, PG&E is doing a lot of their work, field reduction work along their infrastructure. So that will help a little bit. And then the other piece that I think is important to talk about is that, and that was mentioned earlier, is FireWise community development. So we encourage, as was mentioned, the development of FireWise communities, and that could be in the valley subzones or smaller areas. But we want to encourage Lompico to engage in that. Lompico is actually part of the BRIC grant. So hold on, before I try and read this and answer your question. The county OR3 applied for a FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Community Grant. That grant will bring about $20 million to do home hardening, defensible space, and landscape scale fuel reduction work to some targeted communities in our WUI, Lompico being one of them. So that's coming, but it's not here yet. So those are some of the efforts.
You want me to talk while you're
Yeah,
ready?
sure.
And just to touch on the evacuation aspect of it. So from the sheriff's office, if we give that evacuation order and there's something that precipitates that, we recognize the canyon in which Lompico sits, and we have to take into consideration that we're putting our people up there to get people out. So we recognize that getting to those evacuations as early as possible gets the community out, but it also gets our folks out as well. So we take that into consideration, taking into consideration that we're going to ship them to the furthest point to work backwards, right? Rather than working up the hill, we want to get them as deep as we can and work out to Zayani, because we're trying to get them out of harm's way just as much as everybody else.
If you can provide your contact information, I'm happy to reach out to you and talk to you more. Yeah.
Howell Park has lots of burn piles. They have lots of preventative treatment for fires there. But I noticed Fall Creek Park doesn't have any. There's lots of dead wood there all over. And I've never seen any kind of burn piles, nothing. I'm just wondering if there's any plans for that to happen or what?
Sure.
Speaking for CAL FIRE, we try to partner with state parks whenever we can. They have a lot of properties and not a lot of staff. So they have a long list of projects, both developed and in development. And I think they just get to them when they can. So, I can't speak for them, but for all I know, they do have a plan to address that. They've been pretty much going nonstop since the lighting complex to, you know, clean up their properties as they get to them. So that's really all I can say about that.
I live in Lampico. And PG&E is doing some, yes, some work along their lines. The problem is they'll take the big stuff out, but then they leave all of the little junk lying alongside the road. And that's just fuel for fire as far as I'm concerned. And I'd like to know how we can get them to clean up their mess.
They actually leave the big stuff for the landowner. They'll take the little, anything they can ship.
They don't take the little stuff either.
Oh, they ship.
No, they don't ship it out.
They have shipped stuff.
The comments, yes, the comments from the floor are that PG&E are leaving large branches and trunks on the floor, and so folks would like to have a response to that.
So for folks that are in the valley and that don't know, so Lampico Valley was selected as one of 7 targeted communities in the state by PG&E to do the work that they're doing right now. So there's a deep level of engagement. So if you want to leave your contact information with me, I'm happy to make sure that you're in contact with the lead project manager for the fuel reduction work that PG&E is doing. I will not speak to their practices, but the level of engagement that they have in Lampico is, in their words, reflective of the priority that they see to do the work. So I would imagine and I would hope that the practices that you're describing are not reflected in this latest round of work, but maybe historical practices. So I don't know for sure, but let me get your contact information and I'm happy to connect you with that PG&E project manager.
When you were giving your initial talk about communication methods, and you talked about having multiple backup plans for communication in the event that the main lines go down, one of the things that you mentioned was having a plan for areas and having it integrated with different communities. Could you talk a little bit more, give a bit more idea what that would look like in practice? I mean, is it areas people in neighborhoods are calling the county? Is it the county calling people stationed in neighborhoods? What would that look like?
So I'll give an example of some of our kind of well-established, well-coordinated Firewise communities. So we did a drill last year with our North Rodeo Gulch community as part of a CAL FIRE drill. And that community, and I know this is consistent in communities, Fire Safe Council's Firewise communities in Bonnie Doon, that there's what's called a MERS network, right? So some residences, some number of community members in the Firewise community have MERS radios, lower threshold of use. You can get it programmed so you're not going to talk or listen to something that you're not supposed to. So that's the internal communication tool that many of these Firewise communities have. Then usually, in under ideal circumstances in places like North Rodeo Gulch and other communities, there happens to be an ARES representative, a member of ARES. So the way that would work in an ideal situation, and usually disaster is not ideal, but is that ARES person is able to communicate into the EOC and we are able to communicate out to them. Our ARES team is amazing, let me just say. And they're there every Wednesday at our EOC practicing both statewide drills and they do multiple tests. So the idea is that MERS network is able to communicate with the ARES person. We're all good. We need help. We're trapped, whatever the piece of information is. And that ARES person is able to communicate out to the EOC. Then if it's, we need law or we need fire, we're able to communicate because we're all sitting shoulder to shoulder at the EOC and we're able to dispatch in if there's something that is needed that we weren't already aware of. So that's kind of in concept how it works, if that makes sense.
but it's a way to communicate what's an emergency situation is happening. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
I could envision a scenario whether, red flag, extended PSPS, where we activate Aries is on alert. We communicate, through the EOC to our Aries counterparts, and then our Aries people distribute out in addition to all those other tools that we talked about, right? That wouldn't be the only one, but we would use every tool in the toolbox if we needed to, if we were in that, 4-day PG&E PSPS type scenario.
Interject and ask a follow-up question, because the question from the floor was whether there was going to be a call out to Aries. And so my question to you is, if you are an Aries person, are you asking, will you as an Aries person be receiving a call out from the county? Is that part of your question?
Another way to get the initial alert out to communities, if, in addition to say the NOAA radio, if the cruise aware isn't reaching people, if then cell towers are down, is it another way that you envision sending out the initial alert?
I see. Let me restate that, your comment to everyone online. So the question is there a mechanism where the county calls out to Aries to help push information out about evacuations? So I think, as you say,
Yeah, I mean, I could envision I don't want to envision, but I could envision a scenario where we're using all of the tools, one of them being Aries is in our EOC. Our EOC is activated. We make sure that Aries communicates out that important information to the area or countywide to all of their member folks that are tuned in and turned on and listening. And then if they have good communication in their neighborhood, they could push that out. Generally, that's going to be a slower moving communication tool. So we're not going to want to use that in an emergent area in scenario. And it's going to be back to the kind of the door to door type stuff as probably the primary tool, but we would use every tool in the toolbox if we needed to.
Hi, thank you so much for all the valuable information. I am Tanya Schweitzer. I'm with the Long-Term Recovery Group, and I want to use this opportunity to make a plug for Recover California mitigation grants, since we're also talking about mitigation here. There are currently $50,000 available for owner-occupied property owners that lived in their homes during the CCU fire. If you Google Recover California 2020 mitigation grant, you will find the portal, and you can apply for up to $50,000 to do defensible space around your properties, change of siding, change of roofing, multiple other items that you can get retrofitted your house to get your house up to WUI standards. So I just want to take the opportunity to make that plug.
Let me add to that. So that program, you do not have to have been inside the CZU footprint. So any county resident, if you own your home, is eligible for that grant program. So it's important that people realize that you could live in Lompico or South County or anywhere, and if you're income eligible, you're eligible for that program. Yeah. So it's the Recover California. And they do this little branding, big R, Recover California Owner Occupied Mitigation Program. It's administered through HCD, which is the Housing and Community Development Division of the state of California. I could throw more acronyms into it, but I'll stop there. Yeah, there's an income element to qualifying. But
which is great, because, if you have a program that's based on a federal property level, we live in a county that's extremely expensive.
So I'm gonna add to the shameless plug. So Tanya mentioned, right? She's the executive director of the Santa Cruz County Long-Term Recovery Group. So if you go to sccltrg.org, sccltrg.org, you can learn about some of the amazing things Tanya is trying to do to support our community in recovery. And she's got a link to the program there on that website.
Just try to repeat you were saying that the income.
Yeah, it's
80% of the area median income for Santa Cruz County. And that's what allows you to qualify for applying for that grant. Thank you. All right. We have a couple of questions from the chat. Let's see. Couple of comments related to Lompico. Yeah, this one. We don't have cell service or internet in the back of Lompico Canyon. How will we be notified in case of fire?
So Lompico, I'll share one nuance and then I'll hand it to Nick here. So the OR3 is identified some grant funding to support the Zionine Fire District establishing some new sirens. So there are a handful of obsolete and one functioning siren at the fire station. So we are going to fund a siren that's going to go into the valley, at least one. They're trying to crowdsource or fundraise for a second siren. So that will be another backup communication tool for the Lompico residents where communication can be challenging. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I think as Dave talked about earlier, the NOAA radio is a secondary option without the internet or cell phone service. And then obviously the sheriff's office will, our objective is to go door to door, obviously as far as we can get. But we will go door to door with standardized plans for the entire Lompico area.
And the other thing I'll share and add for everybody, right, is that our goal is to do the best we can to communicate with you through all of the channels we've described. But you know your neighborhood, you know your community, you know your condition, you know your constraints from an access and functional needs standpoint, mobility. If you hear that the weather is going to be bad and you have your power out, it is incumbent upon you to take responsibility to be connected if you can be connected, or to get out and stay with a friend if you feel threatened or concerned, right? We are going to do our best to communicate to you door to door or the different tools, but we can't guarantee in all conceivable scenarios that we're going to be able to use any of those tools as effectively as you using common sense and saying, you know what? Power's been out for 3 days. The wind is howling at 30 miles an hour. Maybe I should just go and stay with a friend in town or get out of harm's way. So we do want you to take that personal responsibility. Living in a high risk area requires some level of personal responsibility that all of you are here demonstrating. So I want to encourage that and remind you of that as well.
Question about sirens, actually. With our fire districts, and I'm not particularly knowledgeable about this, but are we moving towards the use of more sirens from our fire districts or fewer sirens?
Generally speaking, sirens are a communication tool. They're not, in my opinion, the most effective because you hear it, you don't know which way to go. Generally speaking, if you've been practiced and it's been trained, okay, this means something is happening. But it is too hard for us as a county, fundamentally and financially, to fund a comprehensive countywide siren system. That would be tens of millions of dollars. And then you have to maintain it. and then you have to turn it on every week or every other week. So at least from the OR3 side, some targeted locations like Lompico that is a high risk box canyon makes some sense, but at least for us, using those other communication tools is our primary goal because of the limited resources and the challenge with communicating with everybody. You could have a valley and have a siren on one side of the hill and you can't hear it on the other side. And by the crow flies, it's a quarter mile. So to be able to saturate and penetrate the entire valley or the entire county is cost prohibitive. So we want to use those other tools as the primary in most cases, but I'll let the chief if he wants to add anything.
So I won't, hello? So I won't speak for the other fire districts. I'll only speak for mine. We do have a siren on top of our Station 1 downtown in Boulder Creek. We do test it about 4 times a year. Usually you probably recognize that going off during fundraising times, but that is essentially also a test. We have a plan that's going to be rolled out here shortly to the public. That's going to be a more frequent test of that system. And really what you need to remember with the siren, at least for my fire district, and when we use it, is we're just telling you there's an emergency. Be aware, be alert, be paying attention, be ready for that information that's going to be coming to you, hopefully in the form of either door knocking or one of the other communication tools that were spoke about earlier tonight. It doesn't give you detailed information. It just lets you know there's something going on.
Very much. I noticed that there was one of the tree related questions online was about if we've got a tree service vendor in the county that is making a bit more of a mess than property owners like. Is there a place where that can be reported so we can help make sure that while tree work is being done, that we're not just creating a kind of a nuisance for property owners? Excellent.
So most tree work companies are not going out there on their own. So they're being employed or paid by the county, by the Resource Conservation District, by PG&E, or by some other agency. So it's probably most effective for the person that asked online to try and identify where, and then, you can try and notify our Public Works dispatch, and we may be able to chase down who that work is being done from or by. Or if you happen to see the tree worker and tree working company and are able to ask them who's paying for this work, and you can identify if it's PG&E, or if it's the RCD, or if it's CAL FIRE. Generally, CAL FIRE doesn't hire tree companies, but they're being employed by somebody. And if it's a private property owner, then that private property owner has decided to give that tree company the direction to either leave the chips or not. So hopefully that's a way in which we can try and track down the who that is asking for that work to be done. And then we would tell PG&E, the RCD, or somebody else, can you not leave a mess?
Is there by chance maybe one more question, Dan, from earlier that we want to catch? Yeah. Oh, interesting. So this one appears to be addressed to Supervisor McPherson, who's unfortunately has left this evening. The question was on the topic of how to support individual property owners in reducing fire fuel around their properties and creating defensible space. Tree work is expensive. Transporting cut trees or chipping is difficult for many people, etc. How can the current and future 5th District Supervisor better educate and encourage property owners to better manage their defensible space?
So I'll take this opportunity to remind folks there's 2 opportunities tomorrow to voice your opinion on the home insurance issue to the state insurance commissioner. So they're coming to the board at 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. There's a member of the insurance commission that will be there. And then tomorrow evening in Scotts Valley, There's a kind of co-hosted community event there, and I'm forgetting exactly the time, but I'll try and get that and relay that. The reason I bring those two examples up is because what appears to be moving in the direction of kind of how do we address defensible space and where does the finances come from? Part of those programs were discussed. The great grant program that Tanya mentioned is one opportunity. The BRIC grant that we applied for and are hopefully going to be able to do is still a few years out, probably because of environmental review. But what we are expecting from the state insurance commissioner, what we are seeing from CAL FIRE and our fire safe councils and our FireWise communities is a consolidation of the evaluation of your home process. So trying to create one home evaluation tool. And then what we are thinking and what we are seeing from the insurance commissioner's office is if you take that list, that checklist of things you need to do to your home, zone 0, that's the 0 to 5 feet, removing combustible material or soffit vents or the right roofing material or home hardening around the sides of your home. If you take care of those things, the goal is that your insurance comes down. So there's a movement to create a financial incentive for you as a homeowner to try and find the funds to do that work to then reduce or lower your policy, your monthly policy. So there's things afoot, but the best and most near term to that question right now is if you're income qualified, take advantage of that Recover California owner occupied mitigation grant. That's free money to do home hardening work and defensible space.
Thank you. And I wanted to say the meeting that's going to be tomorrow evening in Scotts Valley at the Scotts Valley Community Center is a community wildfire preparedness workshop, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. at the Scotts Valley Community Center. Okay, I'm being told that the venue changed and it's at the Community Theater in Scotts Valley next to the Scotts Valley Library. Okay, and you need to sign up ahead of time to get in, but I don't know where you might find that. It looks like Scotts Valley Recreation is a potential sponsor. So it may take a little bit of some online work for you folks who want to sign up to go to that event. They will talk about evacuation and readiness, ready, set, go, buying, selling, and insuring in high wildfire areas. All right, and here in the room, we've got someone who's going to be speaking on that panel. So Maggie Barr. All right. All right, so I think we've gotten some of our online questions. Sign up at Scotts Valley Recreation. That's fantastic. All right, and so we are not done yet this evening because we would like to invite to the stage Boulder Creek CERT Bill Monroe to talk about go bags. But as we do that, I'd like everyone to please thank our panel, and our panel can you can say where you are, or you can we're going to make a little space for Bill, and he's going to keep it short. We're already over. No, we're still good. So come on up. You want to bring your pack? I also want to say, I also would like to say that as a gift for those of you who came this evening, what we have is at the back tables, we've got a lot of brochures that you can pick up. There's a clever map that is called the SLV cheat map. And Robert Staton from Boulder Creek created that and wanted to just share with you a little bit about it. I asked his permission to reproduce it and be able to distribute it, and he agreed. Now, this is what Robert said about the map that he made. I've updated my fake map of SLV and added my name to it, but anyone can use it if they want it. It doesn't have any red marks anywhere, X marks. The concept came from a documentary I saw about the invention of modern subway maps. long story short, I decided that all the twisty bends are irrelevant. All we care about is what the next significant road is. Now, I'm not pretending that this is an evacuation map. It is just a very clever map of the San Lorenzo Valley. And I thought we would probably all enjoy having a copy of that to remind us of our roads, and also might make a great gift for new folks who move in on your roads.
The soft copy, put it in chat.
We will make this, we'll make a soft copy available online. We'll probably end up putting it through the Sliven website as a link. All right, and with that then, why don't you tell us about go bags?
I'm gonna be really quick, but so I'm the Boulder Creek team lead as well as I'm chief of operations. So I've worked with Dave Reed often with a lot of call outs, and with Dan with Aries, and evacuating the White House Canyon was a cooperative effort like the CZU fire. But with go bags, which I was asked to talk about, our go bags, you should have one for your car, one for your house. The intent of that is so that you have something with you that is going to allow you to survive for either a few days when you get out of your house. The most important things in there are things that you can't do without: medication, records. I recommend that you digitize all your important insurance records and things like that, put them on a thumbnail drive, or at least make paper copies and put them in a waterproof bag. My go bag for my car or quick by my bed is just a backpack. But here's something else. This go bag is no good unless you can get out and across broken glass during an earthquake. So I recommend you put shoes under your bed right next to where you can get out, so that if the floor is covered in broken glass, you have your shoes to put on, then grab your go bag. And if it's a fire in your front door, in your house, you don't have much time to get out and get a thing. So you may have to go through your window or some other exit. So this means you need a plan to get out, right? So go bags are just a part of the thing. You need to practice a plan about how you're going to get out, depending how much warning you get. Some people during the CZU fire didn't get much warning if they lived up by Big Basin, you know? And so if you have more time, have a list of things, checklist that you carry maybe in your bag. Do I want to get these pictures off the wall? What can't you live without? If your house burns down, you can ask some of the people here who have lost their home what they wish they had taken with them when they evacuated. My wife, when we had to evacuate twice, she forgot her brand new hearing aids at home, you know, because she had just gotten them. She wasn't used to remembering them. So the little things like that, having a checklist will help you prevent that. Go bags, you can always improve and change on them. My main bag is basically just a roll around that you would carry on an airplane. It's metal, it's hard to burn, and it's got already pre-packed with enough 5 days worth of living in that bag. 2 days in this one, I have a week, and if I get to laundry, I can spend weeks away from home. So long as I have enough medication and I've got all my insurance papers, I'm going to be okay. Any questions? So have a plan. Stay safe.
All right.
Thank you to Bill Monroe.
Let's have some pizza. The pizza. The pizza. Where did the pizza come from? Well, as I understand it, the best pizza always comes from Boulder Creek Pizza and Pub. And we are really grateful for them to be a sponsor for our meeting this evening. And those folks who are here are going to be enjoying pizza next. Thank you all very much for coming. And I hope you found this to be informative. Good night.
my daddy. This happened. He's been working and slaving his life away. Oh, yes, I know. So hard. Baby.